Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to FEMA Region 2's Individual and Community Preparedness Monthly Webinar Series. Today's topic is 211, the Resource Hub Before, During, and After Disasters. Before we get started, just a few technical considerations. You should be hearing the audio through your computer speakers. Please ensure your volume is turned up on your laptops or computers so you can hear the proceedings accordingly. This meeting is being recorded and transcribed. The archived event will be available on the FEMA Region 2 website in the coming weeks. Before we end today, you do have the opportunity to submit questions during a question and answer period after our speakers are finished presenting. You'll find the Q&A pod in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Please feel free to submit your questions, and time permitting, we're looking forward to discussing them. Finally, in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a question asking if you'd like to receive the Region 2 newsletter. If you would, please feel free to enter your email address in that box, and we'll add you to the distribution listserv. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Debbie Costa, FEMA Region 2 Preparedness Specialist, to introduce our topic and our speakers today. Debbie?
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. As Steve mentioned, I am the Preparedness Liaison for New Jersey's FEMA Integration Team. I provide preparedness support to the state as well as the region. On behalf of our team working to strengthen preparedness across our entire region, including New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, I'm thrilled to welcome you to the April installment of our monthly webinar series. As part of FEMA's 2018 to 2022 strategic goal to build a culture of preparedness, the Individual and Community Preparedness Division is focused on helping people prepare for disasters. That includes helping people to increase the percentage that set aside savings for emergencies, delivering training to help nonprofits and community-based organizations, to help them to continue to service delivery following a disaster, and increasing the percentage of people who have taken preparedness action. As part of the goal to support nonprofits and community-based organizations during disaster, we've invited Kelly Dodd, Director of Western New York's 211, and Melissa Acree, Director of New Jersey 211 Partnership, to speak on how 211 can connect individuals to support from community-based organizations before, during, and after disasters. Kelly Dodd is the Director of Contact Center Services at the Olmsted Center for Sight, provider of the 211 WNY helpline, among other lines of business. Kelly has been with 211 WNY since it was launched in Western New York in 2007 and holds an AIRS certification as a resource specialist. She graduated from Onondaga Community College with an associate's degree in humanities and University at Buffalo with a bachelor's degree in linguistics. Kelly, it's all yours.
All right, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I am going to do the first half of this presentation, and then Melissa is going to join us in the second half to talk about some new things that they're doing in New Jersey in disaster response. So first, I'd like to give you an overview of what 211 is. So next slide, please. So what is 211? First off, it's a phone number. 211 is a 3-digit phone number that connects people to services in their community. So that 3-digit exchange, 211, was designated by the FCC to help people find help in their communities. So just like 911 or 411, all you have to do is dial those 3 numbers. 211 is also a website, so it's a place to find those services online. And it's also a resource database. So we have a wide variety of services available in communities through nonprofits and government agencies, and it's hard to keep track of them all. So that's what we do. 211 has a resource database that maintains up-to-date information on all of those agencies and services, what they do, and who they serve. And then what else is 211? Most importantly, it's a person. So when you call 211, you're going to talk to a real live person who's going to help you. They're going to listen to you. They're going to help understand what your needs are, prioritize how you want to address those needs, and then connect you to the services in the community that are actually going to help you meet those needs. Next slide. So 211 provides a single point of access to the wide range of communities' social services, health services, government services. So in my community, 211 Western New York, we cover the 7 western counties of New York State. However, so the statistics that I'll give you are to that area, but 211 is available in all of New York State, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico, as well as 93% of the U.S. population has access to 211. So in Western New York, we have a database that provides about information on about 4,500 different agencies and services that provide over, agencies and programs rather, that provide over 10,000 different services. So that's impossible to keep track of it all, and it can make finding help very challenging. So that's really where 211 comes in. 211 helps the person identify what the needs are, because again, sometimes when we're in a situation where we are dealing with something in our lives that we're having challenges with, it's hard to identify what the needs are. So it's helpful to have someone to talk to have someone ask those questions, and to have someone help you realize what resources are available in the community. So 211 is personal and it's confidential. When you call 211, you can share as much or as little information about the situation that you're dealing with as you'd like to. So we don't collect people's names or identities or anything like that. We just want to help people get to that next spot. And again, 211 is covering all of New York State, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico. There isn't currently a 211 in the Virgin Islands, but we're hoping that in the future that'll happen. Next slide. So here's a coverage map. This is from June 2018 of what the coverage is in the different communities in the United States. And next slide. So these are some of the different kinds of questions that people will call us with. People who are in a situation where they need help and they just don't know where to start, or they think that there's a service out there that can help them with the problem that they're dealing with, but they're not sure. Or they don't even know if that service exists. They know they need help with something, but they don't know if it's available. So folks will call us, and like I said, we'll have a conversation with them. We might ask, what their zip code is so that we can make sure that we're finding services that are local to their area. We might ask them questions about their household size or their income level so that we can make sure that we're screening them for services that they're eligible for. And then we want to understand the situation. So not just the emergent need or the question that they called with, but we'll ask them probing questions to find out what the situation is that they're dealing with, to really understand what's going on and find the best resources in the community for them. Frequently people will call and they'll have that initial question like, I need a food pantry. And we'll start to have that conversation with the person. So we'll find the food pantry for them, but we're going to ask them, are there kids in the household? Are they connected to WIC? Why do they need the food pantry in the first place? Was there a job loss? Was there a change in their life situation that we can help connect them to a service for that with? So these are some of the different kinds of needs that people present with when they call to 211. Frequently, we will connect them to more services than they necessarily initially thought that they needed help with. Next slide. So 211 provides comprehensive community information and referral services. So that means we're providing referrals to all kinds of different services available in the community, everything from counseling and support groups to legal services, referrals to school organizations, civic organizations, services for people with disabilities, services for families, services for veterans, etc. Next slide. And the kind of information that we're able to provide them is not just a phone number, but we're able to provide them details on the referrals that we're giving them. So we're able to give them a description of what the services are. We're able to tell them what the hours of operation are, what the days that they're open. We're going to screen them for eligibility because we want to make sure that we're sending people to places that are actually going to be able to help them. We don't want to send someone somewhere that is not going to help them. That defeats the whole purpose. And then we're also going to be able to provide contact names frequently so that the person can really feel confident in calling, that they're not cold calling someone for services. And typically when we call, we want to give people some options. So we're not saying, this is the best place or this is the place you have to go. We want to be able to say, here's the 3 options for you in your community. Here are some of the differentiating factors between them, and really have that person decide for themselves where they think is going to be best for them. Next slide. So as I mentioned, 211 is also a website. These are the community resource databases for New York, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico. So on these websites, you can also use the database to find services yourself. This is frequently done by folks who are in the helping profession if they're working with a client, maybe doing some case management, or they need to connect a client to a service that is not part of the service that they themselves provide. They can use 211 to find the services or make those referrals for their clients. And frequently they will do that by doing a search on one of our community resource databases. So these are publicly accessible. Folks can go on the websites and do searches themselves and find the same information that our staff find when we're giving out referrals to the community. So our resources are updated on a rolling basis every 12 months, and that's really to ensure the integrity of the referrals. We don't want to be giving out information that is old to folks because we don't necessarily know that those services are still existing, or maybe the eligibility changes, et cetera. We all know that funding comes and goes, and things are always changing. So we do strive to have those agencies review and update their information at least once every 12 months. Next slide. So this is a screenshot of the 211 WNY search website. You can see there's a Google box kind of that you can put in keywords there and do searches, but we also have some guided searches. So if you're just looking for services based on kind of a service area, like legal services, housing services, et cetera, you can click on those and follow those guided searches to find some resources that are going to help you. And next slide. 211 is also texting now. So we have the 3 modes of communication. We have calling 211, we have our website, and now we are texting. So texting is available by texting your zip code to this short code number, 898-211. We've been using texting to both have two-way information and referral conversations with folks, as well as being able to text referrals to people who do call us. So sometimes we'll be on the phone with someone, and even though they called us looking for information, maybe they're not prepared and they don't have a pen and paper handy. We're able to text them the information of the referral that we're providing so that it's sent right to their phone, which is really convenient because you're not going to lose that little slip of paper that you wrote the number down. It's in your phone. You can, click on the phone number or the address and get directions to that agency in the community. And next slide. So these are the statistics for 2018 for the 211 calls in Western New York. So in Western New York, we handled about 58,000, almost 59,000 calls last year. And unfortunately, Buffalo is still one of the poorest communities in the country, so a lot of the calls that we handle are for folks who are struggling to meet basic needs, such as housing, food, shelter. And 211s are very involved in providing services to people who are homeless or experiencing a housing emergency, whether that's during a winter storm or year-round. So we are frequently called by folks who are experiencing those housing emergencies. And in Western New York, we can connect them to agencies or shelters, do that assessment, and make that shelter placement for them overnight. Next slide. So we have a lot of data, too. All those folks that we're talking to, we are collecting some information on. And I mentioned that the calls are confidential, and that is true. So we're not collecting person-level information, but we are collecting aggregate information about what the community needs are. So this 211 Counts is a data dashboard that shows what the community needs are. So we're collecting those zip codes, like I mentioned, and then we're also tracking what the needs are as well as what the referrals are that we make. So 211 Counts is a data dashboard that was developed by the University of Washington, St. Louis, that aggregates the data from our calls, and this is available for many communities. New York State is 211 Counts works in New York State as well as New Jersey. So if you're trying to do a community needs assessment or doing some grant writing and need to talk about what the needs are in your community, you can come to the 211 Counts dashboard and see, so what are people calling 211 about? What are they saying that their needs are, that they need help with, that they're not able to meet themselves or they don't know where to find in the community? So it's pretty neat. You can narrow down the area by zip code, by legislative district, by county, by state, to see in aggregate what people are having trouble finding help with. And next slide. So great. 211 helps people find help, right? During the Blue Sky, we make sure that families are getting connected to services. Why is this important for folks who work in emergency management or work in disaster response? Well, for one thing, when families are more stable, they're more better able to handle a disaster when it does happen. But, next slide. So like I mentioned, 211, we're helping people find help 24/7, 365. So that means no matter what's going on, people are calling us. And people who are in vulnerable communities are calling 211. Next slide. So 211 is taking those calls 24/7 from a blue sky to a gray sky. So we are able to quickly shift into disaster response mode and start providing services to folks that are responsive to what's going on outside the window. So we're available 24/7. And Melissa will talk about this in more detail. But we have statewide and nationwide partnerships for mutual support. In a disaster, we can provide real-time data on caller needs. So we can also help control rumors because we'll hear them when people call us and say, so-and-so is going on, or I heard this is happening. Can you tell me about that? We can help to stop those rumors and provide accurate and correct information through working with our emergency management partners. We can also update the response resources in real time. So as the situation is changing and as response resources become available, we update that information and push it out to the community members. We're also able to take those offers of help that people make in a response, even when it's not helpful, and direct them so that folks aren't calling those agencies that are, active in the response. They can call us. We can tell them what's needed, what's not needed, where they can be best utilized, where they should go apply for volunteer opportunities, et cetera. And again, 211 is personal. So we're there to reassure the community members. A lot of times that's what we're doing, is we're just providing a listening ear for someone who is going through this disaster or this crisis, and they need someone to hear them. They need someone to listen to their worries or their anxieties about what's happening. Next slide. So we can help during natural disasters like Hurricane Maria, or man-made disasters like the government shutdown, to connect folks to the resources that pop up or that are available in response to that community. And next slide. So again, Western New York, we don't have a lot of disasters, other than the occasional 6 feet of snow that we get in 24 hours. I don't know if that makes us blessed or not. We are between those two large fresh water bodies of water, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, which sometimes flood. So we do get the occasional flooding. And we just experienced the government shutdown, which affected a lot of folks, both government workers as well as some of our community members who were dependent on their food stamps and other government resources. But we also help in the kind of small localized disasters that don't necessarily garner national or support and things like that. So a flood that affects maybe 5 homes. Those are still disasters to those 5 homes, but there aren't necessarily a lot of community resources active for that. So we can help connect those families to the resources that are available. We can also help during things like food contaminations and outbreaks. So when the grocery store had an outbreak of a worker with Hep C, we're able to provide messaging. We could have public health nurses at 211 answering questions, and we can also do reminder calls of people who need to get vaccinations and revaccinated, etc. And we were also able to help during the crash of Flight 3407. We were able to tell the community what roads were open, what roads were closed, where they could take donations, when memorial events were happening, etc. So that relieved a huge burden on the small town where that happened, that the town government didn't have to be making those responses and calls. And again, sometimes it's just helping people remember what their natural supports are. So when we had that 6 foot of snow, it was helping people be comfortable sheltering in place, realizing that they're maybe not going to leave their house or the direct area outside their house for a few days, and kind of helping them deal with that. There was one woman I talked to, she was starting to panic because she had a toddler and she was running out of milk. And as we talked, she shared that she was living in an apartment complex. And I asked her, so have you talked to your neighbors? Have you knocked on your neighbors' doors to see if they have any milk? And she said, oh, I don't know. I don't really know them. They look kind of mean. I don't know. And I encouraged her. I said, well, I think this is the time to go and help talk to your neighbors. Go talk to them and see if they can help. Introduce yourself. Tell them what the situation is. You'd be surprised at how people can support one another during a situation like this. And she went and she did that. And she didn't need help. It didn't require someone, driving through the snow to bring her milk. She was able to realize that she had supports available to her that she just wasn't thinking about at the time. Next slide. So these are some of the different kinds of questions we'll get during a disaster or an incident. And again, working in partnership with emergency management and responders and VOADs, we are able to provide answers to those questions. Next slide. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Costa, who will introduce Melissa, who's going to talk about some of the cool things that the 211 New Jersey Partnership is doing.
Thank you so much for that great information, Kelly. Melissa Acree is the Executive Director of NJ211 Partnership. She joined NJ211 Partnership in January of 2013 as a Staff Development and Training Manager, where she standardized the new hire training, managed the air certification process, and developed SOPs for new initiatives with United Way Worldwide, CDC, and community agencies. She then moved into the Director of Business Development and Training role in July 2016, where she worked with United Way and state partners. Melissa has a bachelor's degree in special education from William Patterson and a master's degree in applied psychology from Stevens Institute of Technology. I'll turn it over to her now to discuss all the great work that they're doing at 211 in New Jersey.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Kelly, for the first part of this presentation, which really laid the groundwork for 211 in general and the work that we do day in and day out, as well as during disaster. Each 211 is a little different, but the beauty of the 211 National Network is that we do share and support one another. We share best practices, and we're a collective organization, especially during disaster, that really benefit the communities that they serve. So let me just start by the first slide you see here is that NJ211 is a nonprofit. We're statewide, and we've operated since 2005, founded by the United Ways of New Jersey and supported by several state departments. We also are AIRS accredited, which is the Alliance for Information and Referral Systems. We went through a rigorous process back in 2015 to become accredited, but it really is important because we're following best practices and standards for information and referral. Today I'm going to focus mainly on our role in disaster, since Kelly did a great job talking about the overview of 211 during blue skies. So the next slide that I share is that we are part of the State Emergency Operation Plan. Since 2018, we're written into the 3 different ESFs that you see here. ESF 6, Mass Care, with New Jersey Department of Human Services, that we play a role helping people find shelter and other basic needs. Also, ESF 15, External Communication, working very closely with our State Public Information Officer, pushing out information to the public, not only through our call center or contact center, but through our website, through our social media, and through our text platform. ESF 8, we work with public health and the medical examiner in times of, we haven't had to activate this, but mass fatalities, in which a system called UVIS, Unified Victim Identification System, would be activated, and basically 211 then serves as the intake center for people reporting missing loved ones. So that's a very distinct and separate role. And then we're members of the New Jersey VOAD, and we assist when people are looking to volunteer. New Jersey VOAD has an excellent website that allows people to electronically enter their interest in volunteering, but if for any reason they can't do it themselves, 211 will actually assist. So we wear many hats during the disaster, and I attend monthly SEMPS meetings in which we are a very collaborative group representing FEMA representatives there, such as, I see Debbie Costa and Lori Ross and Paul Perillo, Kelly Higgs. We work very closely together with other state departments, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations, and that monthly meeting is really powerful because we understand one another's roles, resources, and it's always easier during a disaster to have that familiar face that you can connect with versus meeting them for the first time during a disaster. So the next slide also shows that over the years, NJ211 has built their infrastructure to meet the needs during a disaster. So our telephony is cloud-based, which gives us the ability to work remotely and to expand our capacity to other locations. We can quickly ramp up and ramp down and program calls to different locations. You'll see that we also utilize the 898-211 for live texting, and what I'll speak to you about in the last part of my presentation is an exciting new automated text platform for disaster preparedness. So it's a very flexible system. And we also share our data on 211 counts, and I would encourage everyone to look at that at some point. Just anyone can log on to 211counts.org, and you can look at New York, you can look at New Jersey, you can see the types of needs that we get, and you might want to look at states that have had recent disasters, maybe North Carolina, South Carolina, and you can actually go to their disaster category and see the count or percent of calls that were disaster related to whether it was evacuation or emergency services or FEMA claims, whatever the subcategories may be, but it's a great tool and a great public dashboard. We also report hourly, daily, customized reports from our client management system that we share with the Office of Emergency Management. And the last icon there is a website. Our website will have a red banner across the top indicating the disaster with a link to a page that gives up-to-date information. So we kind of transition from blue sky to gray sky in all ways: contact center, website, and also our other systems. And you know, the bottom point is really important. Live, experienced, and certified staff. Our staff do this day in and day out, working with people in need, giving information, referring people, making sure that the calls that we take are thorough, but also to the point, so that we can, during a disaster, help as many people as possible. And so it's important to have that experience. Next slide. So I'd like to talk to you about the 898-211 platform, and I say the power of 898-211 because texting really is an important means of communication, especially during a disaster. So the national text platform that many of us are using, over 150 locations throughout the 211 national network, is through educational messaging systems and their Prevention Pays platform. And this platform is used day in and day out for live texting, but it also can be used for an automated text communication. And that is a very good alternative channel, because when power goes out or when cell phone connection is not available, you can typically text. As long as you have a place to power up, you can text and get important information. Next slide. Here's a sample of how it was used in a disaster for Hurricane Florence. People were given a keyword, and this is the automated text system, Florence. They type in Florence to 898-211, and then the system is very intelligent. It would ask if they were from North Carolina, South Carolina, or Virginia, because the messaging was very different. And once they indicated their state, they would be given information. It could be about shelters that were opening, evacuation routes, or even if they had to evacuate, information about medicine, or where they could get prescriptions filled, or things that were pertinent before, during, and after. The next slide, I think, is one that was used in Harvey. So if you can go to the next slide, you'll see a very similar type of advertisement. Next slide, please. Hello?
Yep, we did move to the next slide. Can you see that?
Okay, there you go. Now I see it, sure. And that was just another sample of how it was used in Harvey. Next slide is a summary of a few places that use the 898-211, and you'll notice it's different disasters. The fires, the shooting in Nevada, the Thomas Fire in California. Our partner at Prevention Pays shared that, you know, it was very evident that so many more people wanted texts than they were calling in. And what's nice about the system is that the 211 is customizing and entering information as it's coming in real time and pushing it out. So it keeps people informed, and I would like to think a little calmer, and that way it's proactive in pushing this information out. Even if it's that there are more shelters opening in this county, hoping to have that information available to you by 3 p.m. or something like that. It keeps people informed. Next slide. So after it's been used during disasters as well as after. So when it happens and then recovery and beyond, the vision that New Jersey had was, why don't we use this platform before a disaster and start to push out pre-disaster information and get people as prepared as possible, because we all know in emergency management, preparation is the key. So the next slide is something that in collaboration, NJ211 had this vision and started to work on it and brought in New Jersey Office of Emergency Management, and we talked it through, and Ready NJ is the program that we're launching May 1st. And the concept is know it before you need it, and that we would build a listserv where people would be opting in to get disaster prepared information that would help us to identify who's most vulnerable, who are our seniors, who are the individuals with disabilities, and just to understand that community's needs from a statewide perspective and as well as a county perspective. Next slide. The idea would be that it would be very proactive messaging, and it would not only, inform everyone. Everyone could use this, every resident of the state, because we all need to be prepared. But it would inform them of 211 services during blue skies, because a lot of people don't know what we do day in and day out, and that we're available 24/7, 365. But it would also let them know that we're a portal of information when a disaster hits, and the many ways they could reach us here: phone, text, chat, and website. We would also promote Register Ready, which is the system in which people with disabilities and access needs would register, so that counties would know how to set up their shelters, what they would need in advance. So there's a component that I'll talk about that we can do, to promote this. And then just monthly emergency prepared messaging that is relevant to the season at hand. And I'm going to be looking to a lot of our partners, to our FEMA partners, our VOAD partners, for what are some good, important, valuable things that the public could grasp and be preparing themselves for a disaster. Next slide. So when people text ReadyNJ, they will be asked these three basic questions. They'll be welcomed, and they'll be asked to enter a zip code, which in the back house will give us not only the zip code, but it breaks down by municipality and county. They'll be asked if anyone in their household is 60 or older, and if anyone has a permanent disability. If they answer yes to permanent disability, what will happen is they'll get a follow-up message shortly after mentioning Register Ready and inviting them to enroll with a link directly to that website. They press the link, they're right there, they can enroll. They can also opt to get assistance enrolling, and they would be able to schedule an appointment through the system with 211, and it would say, would you give a few options of days, options of hours. They would indicate that in the text messaging. We would get that at 211, and then what would we do on that day? We would call that individual and actually enroll them in Register Ready. Next slide. And so additionally, when the disaster actually hits, and let's say, these people have been receiving messages for a few months, and all of a sudden now we're hit with a hurricane or we're hit with a different type of disaster, we can begin to push out information seamlessly to this group who are enrolled in Register Ready, information about the disaster at hand. We probably would also create a new keyword. So if it was like Florence, we would whatever the name of the disaster is, we would share that for people that are new opting in, and they would start to get just the information that's relevant to that disaster. And those are just some samples of the type of information that we can push out, but obviously it can go beyond evacuation routes, weather updates, safety information, in the very beginning, sheltering in place, or other types of things that people might need to do to remain safe, power outages, FEMA info, and more. So what the beauty of this is, it's preparedness that just links right into, okay, a disaster's at hand, and here's what you need to know. And at any point in the automated text system, they always have the option to speak to a live specialist, either by phone, text, or chat. And my last slide, I think is just the flyer, the ad that we've put together that will be launching the Know It Before You Need It and texting ReadyNJ, and the type of information that individuals will receive. We're going to be communicating this to our state partners at the Department of Human Services, Department of the Division of Developmental Disabilities, Department of Children and Families, all the departments that may deal with specifically the vulnerable populations, but we're also going to push this messaging out in ways that it will get to all people, because like I said, this is a system that everyone can benefit from. So we're excited, and I thought that this would be a wonderful opportunity to share it with this audience today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We're going to take a look at some of the questions. If anybody has any additional questions, there's a Q&A box on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Let's see. We had a question for Melissa Acree, Larry Heck was asking whether or not you guys were partnering with any local churches.
This is Melissa speaking. Well, we certainly are involved at the state level with some of the faith-based organizations that are represented with the SEMPS, the State Emergency Management Program stakeholders. Local churches, getting the word out about our programs would be something that I think would be beneficial for us. as far as communicating what resources we have. And I know that our outreach, the individual who does our outreach does either sometimes attend those, or we send them materials about our day in and day out services. Kelly, do you have anything different?
No, I think you read my mind. I think, it's important for us to have those relationships with churches and folks who are trusted in communities to share the word about 211. 211 has been in Western New York for over 10 years now. However, I still run into people every day who have never heard about 211. So I think it's really critical, especially for people in helping professions like churches, to know about 211 just to support the work that they do as well.
Thank you both. Brett Walsh was asking, how is the information like road closures given to 211 by emergency management agencies, or does 211 actually go about seeking out the information from emergency management?
This is Melissa, and we receive all the information from the public information officer. So everything's vetted. We do not seek that information. We are on conference calls with partners, so there may be a situation that the Department of Transportation has shared some information, and, so right within that forum, on that call, there will be information that indicates that can be shared. So, when a disaster hits, we are either at the Regional Operation Intelligence Center physically, or we're on conference calls getting this information in real time. So that, as well as always vetted through the public information officer.
And this is Kelly, and New York State is different because New York State itself is always different. So for us in New York State, the 211s there is no formalized agreement on a state level between 211 New York State and New York State dishes. So we are working regionally at the local level to make those relationships with local emergency managers at the county and sometimes at the town and village level in Erie County, so that they know who we are and they can send us that information during an event, so that we are able to go to the EOC during the event and have that information. However, that doesn't always happen. We don't have those agreements in all communities, but that doesn't mean that people aren't still calling us for that information. So we do reach out to emergency management, to response agencies, to understand what the current SITREP is, and to find out what the response capacities are. So we will work with the Red Cross, we'll work with the Salvation Army, we'll work with our VOADs to understand, how they're responding, what is available, and we'll use We'll look at the information that government is pushing out to the public so that we can echo or repeat that information. So, for example, road closures, we'll look at the 511 or the New York alerts and pass that information along as well.
Thank you. Are the 211 services bilingual? Are they available typically in both English and Spanish and or other languages?
So this is Kelly. That's something, thank you for asking, I should have mentioned in my section. So 211s all have translation services available if they don't have bilingual staff on hand. So most of us are using the language line or TransPerfect or some kind of service like that, so that we're able to communicate with callers in, 170 plus languages.
Yes, that's the same for New Jersey. And our website, I would just like to add, translates over to 170 languages as well.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
We have an attendee with us today from California, and he's asking how the information is automated and which system is used for the 211 texting platform.
The system that we're both using, Kelly and I, like I mentioned, is called Prevention Pays, and it is a platform that we work with our partners at Prevention Pays, at least for Ready NJ, to build out that workflow and intelligence of messaging, and then we being the 211, we have administrators of this program that we can actually go in. We can change messaging, add messaging. We can download reports. So it provides all of that flexibility as well as very strong support from the vendor. They are very committed to the 211s. I don't know if that answers your question, Kelly. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just share one of the ability to push out messaging, it has been really great for our community. In Buffalo, we have a significant number of folks who are unsheltered, and we experience significant cold in the winter. So we were able to use the texting platform to push out messages anytime there was a code blue called and the emergency low demand, no barrier shelters were open. So we would have people opt in to text messaging. So they would text code blue Buffalo to that same number, and that would opt them in. And then every day when the code blue was called, we would push out messaging to those subscribers. And the subscribers were, street outreach workers, they were county officials, but they were also people who were experiencing homelessness. So we were able to let those folks who might otherwise, sleep outside at night know that there's emergency shelter available. They don't have to stay outside. They should come in from the cold. People who are experiencing homelessness still have a cell phone. It's a lifeline these days.
And we have found that they don't have to use their minutes by calling in and, sometimes waiting. The text is the perfect way to preserve those minutes and to get the information quickly.
Thanks. I think we have one more question. We're being asked what your capacity is to handle calls. Could a county or state possibly use 211 as a data collection point, like for evacuation request?
Absolutely. So 211s are a network across the country. So we provide mutual support to each other during an event so that we're able to handle spikes or increases in capacity due to an event. So during Hurricane Sandy, my team up in Western New York and Buffalo handled over 1,200 calls from the Hudson Valley or Long Island region, providing information on, evacuation routes, where shelters were, where the Salvation Army canteen was providing meals, et cetera. And the callers themselves didn't even necessarily know that they were talking to someone in Buffalo, not talking to someone in the Hudson Valley. And our ability to provide that mutual support is really critical because, when an event happens, it's not just the community. Our staff are usually part of that community that are impacted. So when we have that mutual support, we're not asking staff who are experiencing the disaster and responding to the disaster to overexert themselves by working, 24/7 to answer calls. We're able to rely on our partners to back each other up.
Yeah, I would just echo those thoughts and say that our capacity physically in our location in NJ211, we have 65 seats that could be utilized during an emergency. That's, our entire training room with laptops set up and the whole bit. So, but often we need to go beyond that, and we have actually helped North Carolina and in Broward County in Florida, as well as Palm Beach with Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Irma, and then the Hurricane Florence, and we back them up during that time. And with Hurricane Florence, we worked with North Carolina for 3 months, actually, you know, to provide that support. So we do back each other up as needed.
And in New York State, 211 is a network, so there's 8 contact centers across the state that work together to provide 211 service to New Yorkers, including, I should have mentioned, 311 in New York City. So if you are in New York City and you call 211, it's actually routed to the 211, 311 call center. But a lot of our staff are also, especially in Western New York, they work remote. They have remote capacity, so we have staff that work and live in 3 of the 7 counties in Western New York, so that gives us some added backup, and that if we get that 6 feet of snow, that doesn't mean that the staff aren't able to work. They can work from home. You know, they don't need to worry about the roads coming in, and it just gives us that extra backup internally.
I think that's all the questions that we probably have time for today. There is a box in the top right-hand corner asking about the Region 2 Bulletin. That is the Preparedness and Resilience Bulletin. It goes out every 2 weeks. Any trainings, workshops, webinars that we have going on and promote through that bulletin. If you're interested in receiving it, please sign up. Steve, I think you could talk a little bit about the availability for folks to get the slides for today's presentation.
Sure, Deb. At this point, I think that we have everything captured on the recording here, and we'll send that the link out to all registered participants with the recording, so the content is certainly available there.
Excellent. And we send out a link to the recording. All of the webinars that we host are housed on the FEMA Region 2 site. Once the recording's all cleaned up, that's available. So if people know folks who weren't able to join us today, they're certainly welcome to listen at their leisure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and especially to our speakers, Kelly and Melissa. We really appreciate what you guys do every day, and we appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us today.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for having us. And I just wanted to add that I added in the chat, there's a YouTube video that the United Way put together that shares the 211's role in responding to events during 2015. So it's a little bit dated, but, you know, in 4 minutes, it gives you the idea of how 211 can really support your community.
Perfect. We look forward to checking that out. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.